Hello, everyone. My name is KILOLO LUCKETT, and I'm a curator and art historian based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I have the great fortune to be in conversation with artist Timothy Washington as part of 154 Contemporary Art Fair's educational programming. And Timothy, you are right now located
in Leimert Park,
in, in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, California, right off of Martin Luther King Boulevard.
And you are right now situated in your studio.
Yes.
And we will get to some of the wonderful works of art in your studio after we kind of go through some images and then talk a little bit about your background. And then you will, talk a little bit about the work that's in your studio, which is a real treat for everybody watching. And then also I want to just let people know as we go along with the programming, feel free to put your comments and questions in the chat section. I'll be looking at that and I will be fielding those questions and comments and asking Tim. Alrighty, so let's get started, Tim. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. Can you see that, Tim? Okay, great. Okay, that's that handsome picture of you. And we will go to the first image. And so, Tim, this image is view at Gallery 32 in 1969. The owner and gallerist, Suzanne Jackson. And can you just tell me a little bit about this time period in Los Angeles and this gallery and the significance of this gallery and the work that you were displaying and some of the artists that were part of this gallery?
Suzanne Jackson was the owner of that gallery. And that was one of my first one-man shows. All graphic statements on aluminum. And the piece that you see right there is titled Silent Majority. And there's a superimposed image of a chicken, which is basically they are chicken to speak up for what they believe in.
And also, Suzanne was a model in art classes at Otis School where Charles White taught, and that's how she originally met you. Is that correct? Do you remember that was like your first, no, that wasn't your first interaction with her?
I think I met her at the Brockman Gallery.
Ah, okay, yeah, because that was nearby.
Yeah, we had an art association where all the artists would meet at the Brockman Gallery. I'm not sure if it was once a week or once a month or something like that. And we all would have an ongoing conversation about art and our what we plan to do in the future and how we could all work together.
Wow. And so what was it like to have your first solo show at Gallery 32? Do you recall some of, what that was like at such a young age?
I was extremely close to Suzanne, mainly because she had a black Afghan hound, beautiful dog, long black coat, and I had an Afghan hound, which was Suzanne's dog. She named was John. My Afghan I call Gonzo, Sir Gonzo, which was it had a black face, long blonde hair, which was mistaken for a human being on several occasions. Wow. And it had a black curly tail, a golden brown back, a white chest, and long black hair on the arms and legs.
So you all bonded over dogs?
Yeah, we used to take them out running, chasing rabbits.
I know you have a strong affinity, love for animals. And we can talk about a little bit about that a little bit later, but I'm going to go to the next image of you. And can you talk a little bit about this image and the actual sculpture?
Okay. Um, this was done while I was in college, and we all went out to Terminal Island in San Pedro, and you had to cross a drawbridge to get there. And once you were there, there was like a mountain of scrap metal. So right away, I started gathering body parts that I would take back to Chenard's and weld together. The shoulders on that particular piece was part of a Volkswagen bumper. The chest cavity was nails. And sorry to say, but I kind of disrupted the class by pounding all those nails in the chest cavity and the base.
And
I guess you can see I was very young when I created that piece.
right, I mean, it's a very tall piece as well.
I tried to make man feel insignificant.
Wow.
And the title of the piece is Love Thy Neighbor. And it was a dedication to the power structure. All the different continents like Russia, China, Korea, Africa.
Wow, and you showed, and you showed this work in a couple of different art spaces, right?
Quite a few, yes.
Yeah. Were there any, what kind of response did you get from viewers when this was on display?
Very positive. Everyone was impressed. I don't particularly like it, but
why not? Oh my God, it's such a powerful, it's a very powerful.
Very well received.
Okay.
It was in quite a few shows, and I do recall being in one show, and they thought it was a controversial piece because they said the figure was nude. Isn't that crazy?
It is. I think people tend to have a awkward response to things that aren't so-called cloaked, clothes. Yeah, I don't see this sculpture as being naked in any sense. I mean, there are different parts of the body that, you are paying more, attention to, but that doesn't make me feel uncomfortable or anything. It actually makes me want to learn more about the work and how it was made and, what inspired you to do that. So.
And also when you think about it, all throughout art history, there have been artists that did nudes and they were accepted. So I couldn't understand why this would cause any controversy.
Right. I think maybe because it might not be more of this European aesthetic. It's very much different. So people might have feel a different kind of way. Just a hunch. All right. So I'm going to go to the next image. And we were just talking about this, Renaissance in Black, which was, this is a poster for the TV documentary that was aired at KNBC4 in 1971. And this is you and artist John Riddle. Yes. And can you just share a little bit about this? And also you recently found, you were unable to find this documentary, and you just recently found it at UCLA. But can you talk a little bit about this documentary, having two artists, two African-American artists featured in this documentary?
Okay, way back then, it had won an Academy Award for a documentary, and it was shown twice at prime time. It was featured in Los Angeles Times paper on several occasions, and it was narrated by Oscar Lee Brown Jr. And me and John Riddle were close friends at that time too.
And so what was the documentary about? Was it about specific works that you made? Was it about, the relationship of like certain art movement going on during the time period?
The title, Renaissance in Black, it's like rebirth of Black. And I did a series of dry points on aluminum, and I actually created a piece specifically for the documentary. And whenever they would pan away going to a commercial, they would show a close-up of the piece that was actually used on several occasions during the show.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, I mean, I look forward to seeing it once you all, are able to digitize it. It's just really exciting that you were able to, find this documentary.
I found it very strange that they were unable to find it at NBC. You would think that it would be accessible in their archives.
Right, right. But UCLA, as you said, Aaron said that you were able to, through Lazetta, able to track it down. So that's fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. All right, I'm going to go to the next image. This unprecedented show that happened. The three graphic artists, 1971, this show of your work, and Charles White and David Hammons. This exhibition took place at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. It was created it was a big deal and created quite a stir. And Tim, can you just share with us the work that you exhibited, and then also, your close friends, Charles White and David Hammons? And can you just talk a little bit about that and the significance of the show, and that this year is the 50th anniversary of three graphic artists?
The pieces that were used in the museum show, some of them were done in my one-man exhibit at Gallery 32. And I believe Mr. Joseph Young came to that reception and saw the pieces which were done on aluminum. Each line was scratched into aluminum with an etching needle. And that was when he decided that I would be one of the contributing artists in the show.
And you were the youngest artist too.
Yeah. But I truly enjoy creating for the museum show. I felt very honored and wanted to do my best.
And so what was it like exhibiting work alongside your close friends?
It was beautiful. I really weren't aware of Charles White that way back then. I think I saw one calendar with his work on it, and I was very much impressed and wanted to meet him. It was kind of a different meeting as far as me and David Hammons, we were close friends.
Mhm.
And we kind of hung out together and did different things together.
Mhm.
And when I met David, that might be one of the other questions later on.
Right.
I met David at the Department of Water and Power,
Mhm.
and which is a relatively new building, huge building. I think it was 15 stories tall. And we would finish our assignment, which would only take us maybe 3 or 4 hours. We would rush through and finish, and we would meet on a different level or a different floor and draw the rest of the night,
Mhm.
every night.
Yeah, and you showed him some really interesting techniques of art making too, which we can talk about that in a little bit. And
Okay.
and that's how he also met Charles White, right, at a class that you were taught by Charles White.
No, that's not
No,
true.
it's not true. Oh, okay, I stand correct. Okay.
He's never been an instructor of mine.
Okay.
Charles White at, I believe it was the Brockman Gallery. He was one of the contributing artists that we all showed together.
Wow. So thank
I admired him and his work, but he was never an instructor of mine.
wow. So we'll have to, we'll definitely correct that. So thanks for correcting me.
I guess my approach was quite different from most other artists, but for me, I used it as a competitive device. Like anything and everything that I did, I tried to put it in a competitive element. For an example, like running track, I tried to be the best. And I feel that that gave me an advantage and made me reach and strive for doing better and better work.
Mhm. Mhm. All right, I'm going to go to the next slide, which is one of your dry point on aluminum. And this is titled Why. And this is one of the works that is in your show at Duane Thomas in New York.
Okay, this was an early aluminum piece.
Okay.
And the figure had a crown of thorns and superimposed, well, it looks like a Christ figure, and superimposed was a dead pigeon. The peace symbol itself is pretty much a dove, but if you research doves, they are considered in the pigeon family. In the feathers of the pigeon, I incorporated figures, and it's scratched in the chest cavity. Why? So in the wings, I incorporated 2 long nails, which I crucified the pigeon. So instead of crucifying the Christ figure, I crucified the peace symbol.
Wow. That's quite profound. And you have in the wing, one of the wings of the pigeon, there are 3 figures that you etched in. And where do those figures come from?
I believe it was some African book.
Okay. Wow, this is a beautiful piece. All right, we're going to go to the next image. This is another dry point, but this is on copper from 1974, and it's titled Inflation.
Mm-hmm. In most of my work, I would use a cat. And quite a few pieces I utilize the image of a cat, mainly because I thought that cats were sneaky, clever, and portray the system itself as being sneaky and clever and pretty much stood back and watched curiously and doing nothing.
It's really interesting that this cat is looking straight out at the viewer, out at us, and kind of engaging us, whereas the male figure is in profile, looking at the cat. And then you also have kind of at the chest of the cat, it looks as if it could be a moon, this circular object floating right above the word inflation.
Yes, but it's like a crying figure, or like a crying image of a face.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Placing emphasis on inflation itself and how inflation affected Black people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Timothy, I just have to point out your penmanship is just so beautiful. It's when I saw that up close the first time, and this is a very petite, a very small work, and I was just struck by your penmanship is so beautiful and so poetic. It flows so beautifully, and it almost looks as if your dry point. It's almost like it's airbrushed in a way. It's just flowing on the surface of the copper.
Again, each line is scratched into aluminum.
Okay.
Would allow the direction would be at a 45-degree angle. And the amount of pressure on the needle will give you the variation in tonal qualities.
It's beautiful. It's a stunning piece. So we're going to go to this next image, which is Black Eyed Peas and Cornbread from around 2007. And, once again, you use a lot of found objects, the materials in your work, and you source them from all different places. And I'm going to advance to the next image of some details of this piece. And can you share a little bit about this work?
Okay. Black Eyed Peas and Cornbread. Growing up, that was kind of like a Black meal. My mom would fix Black Eyed Peas and Cornbread frequently, and at different art events, there was an artist, Dan Consular, and one of the huge parties that he had, he served Black Eyed Peas and Cornbread. The breast in this figure, it came from antique bells of a phone. I would always try to redesign the human figure so the arms are extended long, and the little triangular piece is representing the pyramid, and the figures in that pyramid shape is my friend Ian White and David Hammons' wife, Chie. And in the collage areas, I used part of a Camel cigarette package, which had a camel, and in the background, a pyramid. I also took a quotation from the Bible that spoke about Jesus Christ being the most influential figure throughout history. And what else?
And Tim, the image of Ian and Chia, that's from your travel to Egypt, right?
Right.
Mhm.
Uh, we had a beautiful time together there. Um, one of the one of the pinpoint um, images that stuck with me was um, riding on camels through the desert to the pyramids itself. And another highlight of it was actually crawling down deep into the pyramid, seeing all the images and artwork that was done on the walls of the pyramid. I also was able to pick up rocks and pieces of glass that were close to the pyramid and was able to bring them back to Los Angeles and incorporate them into my sculptures.
Mhm. And you, David Hammons and John Outterbridge, you all rode camels, right?
And Ian too.
And Ian, yes.
And Chia too.
And Chia. All right, great. All right, so I'm going to go to this image, God Is, from 1974. Can you talk a little bit about this work? And the carving is just phenomenal. And, you know, where you find your material, can you talk a little bit about that as well?
I had found this table. It had 3 separate panels. And even way back then, I thought about, since technology was what it was, I often thought that to enhance a piece of art, you would have to not just rely on your drawing ability, but incorporate painting and sculpture and found objects. And the main message is that God is, as opposed to God is not. And I do truly believe that my work is pretty much spiritually motivated and in some cases spiritually executed. And also in that piece, which might extend to the Watts riot, because on the left-hand side, I had found this piece of burnt wood that came from the riot itself, and I kind of inlaid that actual piece within in one of the panels. And when I say fusing other areas of art, I painted the bird of prey in the head part of the sculpture. And I would always use that circular eyes for several reasons. One reason is a way of saying more by saying less. The second reason was when you see that circular eye, it leaves an imprint on the brain, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Once you see it and look away, that image stays in your mind.
And Tim, what about the arm and hand that you carved and this figure that it's holding?
Well, again, I kind of enjoy creating stuff from wood, which I later dismissed mainly because of the sanding dust, which was very irritating. So I only did a few wood carvings. I actually carved the hand from a separate piece of wood and laminated it all together.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a powerful piece on so many levels. Thank you. So I'm gonna go to this next image is a shot of the gallery. That's a gallery view of 3 of your pieces. Oops, I skipped one. Sorry, this one, Induction and Suspicion, which is the title of your show that's at Duane Thomas. Let's talk a little bit about this piece from 1973.
Okay, I titled it Induction and Suspicion. Induction in regards to indoctrinated into a formulated way of governing a figure or a human. The hands are directly at side. When you think about suspicion, back then the police would actually arrest you on suspicion, whether you did the crime or not. I tried to incorporate all the stereotype superimposed elements about Black people. Again, the circular eyes, leaving an imprint on the brain. And in this figure, it had no mouth. So as Black people, we were unable to speak. The tennis shoe on the foot places emphasis on the athletic ability of Black people and the association of basketball. Again, stereotype, superimposed elements. The long penis that hangs down below the knees was another stereotype part of the fear that they had about Black people.
And unfortunately, these stereotypes are still being played out today. And this work is very much, and your work in general is very much, very relevant today. Sadly, it is.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, you have your hand, this figure has their hands down by their side. And then I think about, hands up, don't shoot. Wherever you place your hands up in the air or down by your side, you're still very vulnerable as a Black man, a Black person in general, when stopped by the police.
I kind of hate to talk too much about the negative part of how Black people were treated back in them days. But I was having a show at the Ankrum Gallery in La Cienega, like Beverly Hills. And just the fact of me being in front of the gallery, the police pulled up and held a gun to my head, wondering why and what was I doing in that neighborhood. So right away I had to explain that my work was being featured in the gallery.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that story, Tim, and this work. And then I'm going to go to this last one, which is a view of these 3 works that we got to talk about, that you got to share about the making of it. So thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to, let's see here, stop sharing. Here we go, on a larger format here. So Tim, I have a couple questions for you. Um, I just want to, can you just share about like where you are currently based? You already said you're in Limerick Park, Limerick in Los Angeles, but you know, can you share with us about your upbringing and where you were, where you're from?
Okay, my parents are from Mississippi.
Yes, I'm from Mississippi.
My oldest brother was born in Mississippi. I myself was born in Watts, and we lived in a little bitty small house in Watts, which was on a large, I don't know how many acres of land, but it was a lot of land surrounding the little house. Uh, my father at that time, they were building the Santa Monica Freeway, and we had a house transported from West Los Angeles all the way to Watts. And it was like a two-story house, one of the largest houses in Watts. My grandfather was a carpenter, and my grandfather, from what I understand, built most of the homes in Mississippi, and he didn't charge the people anything. So that kind of tells you about his character. He was a beautiful person and cared, well, like a humanitarian, and was one of the first forms of inspiration for me as I watched him build things with his hands. And also about Mississippi, my grandmother would make these beautiful quilts. And they weren't just quilts because they were more like reliefs, because she would stuff fabric and cotton into some of the shapes of animals, and gave, it almost had a three-dimensional appearance. And being young and being exposed to the quality quilts that she made was another form of inspiration for me. My grandmother, from both sides, my mom's mother was also made quilts, and also made pretty much all of our clothes. She would sew and make these beautiful, innovative shirts, beautiful work. So I was impressed by the stuff that she made, as well as my other grandmother on my father's side.
And Tim, so I have just a kind of like a simple question about, you know, you being an artist. When did you know you wanted to be an artist? And how long have you been making art?
I've been making art pretty much all of my life. And knowing that I was going to be an artist, I felt that way at a very early age. I think I was about 5 years old when I decided, and my mom also making the decision for me to be an artist, because that was one of my strong points. And at that time, my mom was a very influential figure in my life, and she raised 3 hard-headed boys by herself. And my oldest brother, she decided that he was going to be an engineer. So him being a mother's boy did exactly what mom said, and he became an engineer. He was very smart. My 2 brothers were very, very smart. My strong point was art. And as my brothers sat at the kitchen table, they were talking about solving equations in math while I would draw on the table, the kitchen or dining table, which I got into trouble several times for drawing on the table.
Wow, so you knew at such a young age that you wanted to be an artist.
For several reasons. One contributing element was we had moved from Watts to the west side at probably the age of 5. And I was exposed to an artist that lived 2 doors down. He had a son, they were white, and me and my younger brother and his son was named Peter Myers. We would all play together, but most of the time we would go upstairs to his place. And since his father was a professional artist, he gave us materials and art supplies to create with way back then. His son and my younger brother would get tired of doing artwork and wanted to go outside and play. Whereas me, I would stay in with him and create all day, pretty much every day. So he also went to Colima, Mexico, and dug up all these beautiful figurines and things that he would actually sell to different museums. So I was exposed to quality art at a very young age. So way back then, I thought, or since I enjoyed art so much, that I would be an artist. And going back to elementary school, I think we were discussing Brazil and the coffee plantations. And the class was allowed to do a mural in the classroom wall, and nutrition came around, and all the other kids wanted to go outside and play. Again, for me, the joy was to stay inside and work on the mural. And so by the time the kids came back from nutrition, they were all elated, and I was given quite a bit of compliments for the work that I had done on that mural. Going back to junior high school, one of the very first complimentary notices that I received was from our art teacher. Her name was Miss Oglow, and she wrote a complimentary notice that I was supposed to take home to my parents, which stated that she sincerely hoped that I would remain and follow my art career because of my, as she says, my artistic ability. And so that was another one. Now going to high school, I had a beautiful art teacher named Miss Margaret Works. And at that time in high school, most kids were sent to the counselor's office to help decide on the future of the students. The counselor told me at Dorsey High School that I should go to trade tech or to a trade school, as opposed to thinking that I could possibly win a scholarship to an art institute. But when I came back and told my art teacher that what my counselor had told me, she was very much upset behind that and gave me the key to the stock room, which I was exposed to all the different materials that I could use and take home from school. And I believe I was the only one at Dorsey that had life drawing 7 and 8, as opposed to most people having life drawing 1 and 2. My art teacher was very instrumental in helping me prepare my portfolio, which was submitted to Chenard's California Institute of the Arts. My first scholarship was to the Saturday morning classes at Chenard's. My second scholarship was a 4-year scholarship to Chenard's. And I was so fortunate because the tuition at Chenard's was very high. There's no way I could have afforded to have gone there. And again, at that early age, I felt so young, and all the other adult students at Chenard's was where I learned my bad habit of smoking cigarettes, trying to make me look older. But Chenard's itself was a very beautiful school because everyone was concerned and we learned from each other.
Yeah, I mean, could you share some of the artists that you went to school with? There are some great artists that went there.
Well, my close friend David Hammons, once we, after we had met working at the Department of Water and Power, I think I might have already mentioned the fact that we would draw after completing our work assignment. We would draw the rest of the night. And my friend David wanted to know what art school I went to and how to get there. Mm-hmm. Me and David would hang out, and he sat in on a lot of the classes at Chenard's. And from the Department of Water and Power, sometimes I would drive to work, and sometimes David would drive. And at that time, I believe David had it must have been a 41 or 31 Plymouth. It was big. Well, to me, it was a big, ugly car that was instead of a color, it was a primer gray, and he had cut a huge stencil of a star that he sprayed a gold star on both sides of the doors of this car. The thing that was kind of ironic and dangerous was at that time, David's car had no brakes.
Oh my God.
We would still attempt to drive to and from work. And what was so bizarre, he would actually pump the brakes, which would make the car slow down a little bit. But the way in which he stopped the car was he would drive perpendicular to the curve of the sidewalk and turn the tires toward the curb, and would bang into the curb several times in order to make the car slow down and stop.
Wow, so you all were collaborating and doing performance art too. There's a performative aspect to you all driving to and from work.
with no breaks.
With no breaks. I'm just visualizing that, Tim. Oh my gosh. Tim, I have one more question before I ask you what's going on in your studio and the works that are behind you. Coming of age in the 60s and 70s, what was LA like? And what was it like being active in the Black arts movement during that time period? And also, you know, you know, the Watts uprising as well. Can you share a little bit about that before we talk about this phenomenal work that's behind you?
For me, even way back then, I thought about technology and I thought about art. And I thought that since technology was where it was, as an artist, you would have, for me, I would have to incorporate much more than just a drawing or just a painting or just a sculpture. I would try to fuse together all areas of art, giving it more impact. And since at that time and also at this time today, I feel that everything is alive to a certain degree. So if you incorporate different materials, which has a life of its own, into one piece, it would give it more impact and make it much more interesting visually, as well as objects. Let me give you an example. There was a place called Scavenger's Paradise,
And where was that?
I was in Burbank.
Okay.
Since I felt that objects would call me to different areas of the city, and that is a practice that I even do today. Several people didn't believe that objects would talk to me and call me. So I had to prove it on several occasions. But going back to Scavenger's Paradise, when I walked in, there was some wheels that were attached close to the ceiling of this. It was kind of like an antique shop, but it was more like a wrecking company, which had columns and everything conceivable. And when I walked in, these wheels started to vibrate and they fell from the wall into this barrel. So at that time, I jumped back, being shocked by the movement of this object. And right away, I said to myself, I've got to have those wheels. And I did incorporate those wheels in a tall female sculpture that was carved out of wood and that opened up. And I incorporated a baby's face on the inside of this female figure. And those same wheels were utilized instead of arms as wings.
And what's that piece called?
It's called The Energy Source First Warning. When I say the energy source, of course, the energy source would be the creator, God, which controls all, and which I always try to give credit to the creator.
And Tim, we should talk a little bit about what's going on in your studio and what you're currently working on and what's there. Can you tell us a little bit about this beautiful sculpture that I hear it's a musical instrument.
Okay, there's a few pieces here
Mhm.
that I'd like to acknowledge. One is the painting, which has a lot of texture to it, and it's a figure with her hands up holding towards her hair.
Mhm.
The title of that is called Red Eyes.
Red eyes.
Uh, Another painting that I will briefly talk about
Mhm.
is a female figure holding a pigeon.
Oh,
Again,
Aaron's gonna get it. Aaron's gonna show it for us. Thank you, Aaron.
the peace symbol.
Mm.
And
Can you see that?
We can, yes, yes. So the figure's holding a pigeon.
again, placing emphasis on man's attempt to identify with nature. I thought that this particular piece was the most innovative in terms of a frame, because I've never ever seen anything with a frame consisting of objects inlaid in the top part.
And
Uh,
and
even
Tim, what kind of objects are inlaid at the top?
uh, on the left-hand side, there's a wooden part of a column,
Mm.
and on the side of it is a mirror.
Mm.
And next to that were two bottles, small oval shaped bottles with green liquid. So I tried to incorporate liquid into a painting. Next to that were some inlaid pieces of glass. And then next to that is a cross, which portrayed religion has gone to her head.
Mm.
Next to that is another piece of inlaid plexiglass. And next to that is a curved piece of glass with the image of the Queen of Spades. So the image in the painting, she's a Queen of Spades.
Oh.
Next to that is also another curved piece of plexiglass, which has kind of like smoke plexiglass, which were transparent, which you can see through. And next to that is some other inlaid pieces of glass, one with images of flowers. And when you look through the other pieces of glass, you can see through it and see other shapes behind the glass. And at the end is a flower piece of glass. And the figure, going back to the figure, they still do that today. They would cut images in the side of the hair, kind of like a design.
Yes, yeah, yep. I know I'm very familiar with that. I mean, I have 6 brothers and hairstyles, so yeah, even women too. So yeah, yes. And then
Again, I used to try to redesign the human figure.
mhm, mhm,
Talking a little bit about the sculpture, which is a futuristic animal inspired by the Jaguar XKE 2+2, which even today is my favorite car. I thought it was the most beautiful car on the planet.
mhm.
And the front end of the car had a long extended front end. So the sculpture, I poured resin to extend the snout on the futuristic animal. Going back to, I don't know how much time we have, but
yeah, we have a few more minutes and we can close out on this piece.
talking a little bit about the sculpture again, I don't know where I acquired the skull of a hog, which was very ugly and eerie to look at. So for about 2 years, I had the actual skull and I put it in a cabinet because I couldn't stand to look at it. But then at the beach, I found this piece of driftwood that was kind of like an S shape. So it had a ball root on it, which I dug out, and it kind of resembled the heel of a shoe. So I placed the skull of the hog in the back part of the shape of a shoe heel. And to make it relate to the Jaguar XKE, I poured resin to extend the front end. I was also inspired by a peacock. That's why you have all the elements hanging down from the skull of the futuristic animal. The animal has more than several eyes on both sides of the head and eyes throughout the sculpture. Not only is it, it also has rabbit ear antennas, which can be let out to extend it, to make it much higher than it actually is, which is also higher than a horse as we see it now. It has 4 legs with claws at the bottom, kind of like dinosaur claws, with a little fur extended from that as I thought about the Clydesdale horse.
And it
The
has
noise-making element about the piece is that not only is it a sculpture, but not necessarily a musical instrument, but a bunch of noise-making elements accessible. And
I can hear a faint like bell. And Tim, so you created all of these, you put all these components together?
pardon me?
I said you put all these components together to make the sounds.
Right.
Thanks, Tim, for showing us.
Thank you.
I said, thank you for showing us.
Well, it's more sounds than that.
Well,
It can be played from both sides.
wow. Well, Tim, okay, I'll let you, you can show us, you can play it from the other side. We just have a couple more minutes. Is this the only sculpture that you created sound for?
Pardon me?
Is this the only sculpture that you created sound for?
No.
Okay, other ones.
The piece that, and I believe is in New York now,
Mm-hmm.
is titled "The Energy Source Second Warning,"
Mm-hmm.
and that particular piece has a knob midway, which you turn, and you turn the knob. There are bells, chimes, rattlers, noise-making elements,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a bell embedded in the skull of this female figure.
Mm-hmm.
And on a cable line, once the tension builds up in the cable line, it causes the bell to revolve and give the illusion of the eyes revolving in the head.
Wow. Wow. Well, Tim, this has been great to speak with you and learn more about your work, your process, and your time and your upbringing in LA. But I also wanted to just say that the significance of the three graphic artists from 1971. This is the 50th anniversary, and that there will be some programming, right, at LACMA later in the year to commemorate the 50th anniversary of that show. And so we should stay tuned for more information about that, right?
Great. Yes.
Yes, it has been a joy speaking with you, Tim. And Aaron, thank you so much. And to your daughter for helping us set everything up. And are there any parting words you'd like to share with us, Tim?
Well, yes, I want to acknowledge to you and to everyone else how much I appreciate you, as well as how much I appreciate Erin. She's a wonderful person and so smart, and has been a great asset to me in my art. I sincerely appreciate you, the gallery owner in New York, Regis. I like to give credit and thanks to you and everyone else that helped participate in that show and who has helped my career tremendously. I appreciate you, and actually I love you so much. I have enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tim. And thank you, Olivia, for working behind the scenes to make this program possible. And so we're going to sign off for now. All right, everyone, take care. And I'll be visiting you in LA soon, Tim.
Wait, before we go,
okay.
One of the most important things to me is this gives me a chance to acknowledge and give credit to the creator.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing those last remarks, Tim. All right, so I'll be talking to you soon, and I'll see you when I come out to visit you.
Okay, later. Great.
Okay, we'll be in touch. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Goodbye for now.